Now, how is assessment utilized, or what is its role when doing instructional decisions? Now, ano yung purpose ng assessment dyan? Now, first, we need to determine on how assessment will enhance instruction. Now, we have identified 3 ways. First is that assessment can enhance instruction by implementing instructional placement decisions. What do we do here? This is actually when we determine what the students know and where he should be in the instructional sequence. Now, say for example, may mga students na grade 3 na, pero yung skills nila hindi pa pang grade 3. Hence, we need to determine or what can we do in order to improve instruction and help our learners na nandun na sa stage na yon pero hindi pa ready sa pagiging grade 3. Ganon. So, hence, assessment will be there to will be utilized in order to do the diagnostics, yan, and in order to aid in the remedial instructions. That is the first purpose or first utilization of assessment for enhancing instruction. The second one is it will be used to do formative evaluation decisions. Kasi nga, it can be used to monitor students' learning while an instruction program is underway. So, kumbaga, as we described earlier about formative assessment, yan, it is used for or during instruction wherein we are to determine how much are the students able to do given the limited amount of time or interval that which they are exposed to the skill. Ganyan. Now, part yan siya of how assessment will be used for formative decisions. Yan. And, syempre, last but not the least, that is for diagnostic decisions, wherein we need to identify what specific learning difficulties are utilized, saan yung inadequacies nila, or saan ba sila nagkulang or may kulang para matulungan ng teachers. Yan, or para matulungan ng school or educational system natin. Okay? Now, assessment is utilized on those aspects in order for us to create or to arrive at decisions that will be for the benefit not only of the students but also of the community and the school. Ganyan. Okay? Now, we have 2 contrasting terminologies in assessment that is presented here. First off is what we call the traditional assessment and the alternative assessment. Now, what are these concepts? When we say traditional assessment, this is actually when we utilize paper and pencil tests to measure objective learning. What is objective learning? This is when we try to determine how much knowledge or information are our students able to retain. Kumbaga, knowledge level lang siya. Okay? And in traditional assessment, usually yung mga students are only to select a certain response. So, for example, multiple choice tests. None. Now, it is contrived, meaning, or recall your educational technology subject wherein you are introduced to Edgar Dale's cone of experience. Yan. When we say contrived, it's more on an experience na hindi directly na-involved yung learner, but which they are able to, or may malalearn sila, pero hindi sila mismo yung engaged. Now, in traditional assessment, what happens is that you learn based on what you see from others. Ganon. Now, it also induces only recall or recognition, and usually sa traditional assessment, si teacher yung may control ng buong educational process. And in most cases, yung evidences of learning are indirect, meaning we just see na okay, kaya mo mag-recall ng mga terms, kaya mo mag-recall ng definitions, pero are you able to apply the skills? Na hindi natin siya makikita using traditional assessment. Meanwhile, ito naman si alternative assessment. It will use more than just the paper and pencil tests. We have different forms of assessment that goes beyond a paper and pencil tests that are actually already included in the alternative assessments. That which na yung ginagawa ng teacher is to assign tasks for which you are to perform something. For example, demonstrations, oration, public speaking tasks, yan, or essays. Ganun siya. Those are actually forms of alternative assessment. And usually, these alternative assessments are real life or kumbaga, directly engaged yung learners natin. Kasi nga, you are directly exposed on how those skills will be utilized. Say, for example, when we do earthquake drills or when we do demonstrations, those are part of alternative assessments. And aside from that, it will go beyond recall and wherein yung students natin are able to apply kung ano yung natutunan nila. Hence, becoming student structure. Kasi nga, nakafocus siya on how the students are to utilize the knowledge, the concepts, and the ideas na nakuha nila or na-absorb nila in order to display direct evidences of learning. Ganun siya. Now, si traditional assessment is widely used and still is used today, pero alternative assessment is widely encouraged or kumbaga, mas encouraged na gamitin yung alternative assessment. Kasi nga, through the alternative assessment, we are able to demonstrate or we are able to display if the student is really capable or able to apply the knowledge and skills. Ganyan. Okay? Now, what are examples of alternative and traditional assessments? Now, as I stated earlier, mostly yung traditional assessment will involve multiple choice tests or sometimes yung true or false test. Basta yung may choices. Ganun. Kadalasan. Pero, alternative assessments usually includes yung short answer questions, yan, or essay. Sometimes it will involve performance, presentations, demonstrations, exhibits, and even portfolios. Yan. Alternative assessment yan sila. Okay? Now, we have also, or we have here as forms of alternative assessment, one of which is the performance assessment. And with that, FOSH had presented 7 criteria for performance assessment. First is that it should measure important learning areas or outcomes. Kumbaga, ano yung target or goal mo, bakit yan yung binigay mo na form of assessment. Yan. Pangalawa is that it should address all the purposes of assessment. As we stated earlier, it should be utilized for diagnostic decisions, instructional improvement, and formative decisions as well. Now, the third one is that it should provide a clear description of the student's performance. Yan. That can be linked to instructional actions. Ganyan. Next is it should be compatible with instructional models or with a variety of instructional models, meaning hindi lang siya for that single purpose but also can be utilized in other forms. Yan. And it should be easy to administer. Kasi nga, hindi ka makakagawa ng assessment kung ikaw mismo hindi mo maintindihan how the assessment should be done. And also, syempre, how the students, or it should also be easy for the students to administer or to respond as well. Ganon. Now, also, you need to communicate the goals of learning to teachers and the students. Baga, since you had to implement this form of assessment, now the learners and the teachers should know what is the purpose or what is the goal of utilizing this form of assessment. And last but not the least is that it should provide accurate, meaningful information that are reliable and valid. Kumbaga, hindi mo lang binigay yung assessment for the sake na wala lang kayo maisip. but it's more on the general purpose of providing meaningful information na magagamit natin for various decision-making processes. Ganun. Okay? Now, what are the other methods of linking assessment to instruction? It could be behavioral assessment, wherein here we will measure attitudes, virtues, or display of behavior, wherein we are to observe yung learners or kung sino man yung magiging subject, we are to observe them and take a look if the target behavior is actually achieved or is displayed by the learner. Now, we also have this concept of mastery learning, wherein the curriculum is broken down into a set of sub-skills. Meaning, kung may malaki kang goal, that goal is divided into chunks or kumbaga, hati-hatiin mo yan siya. And for each sub-skill, you are to determine mastery for, say for example, yung sub-skill 1, i-check muna natin kung ma-achieve ba ng learner, tapos you proceed to sub-skill 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, in order to determine whether that general target or goal is achieved or is attained. Yan. Now, another as well is what we call the curriculum-based measurement, wherein the teacher will establish a broad outcome, may it be for a period of an academic year, yan, and it should satisfy the following. First is, syempre, the incorporation of standardized measurement techniques. Yan. We will talk about them later on in this course. Also, it should provide detailed information about what type of skills are to be measured to the students. Yan. Another is that it should provide a broad range of instructional options and will utilize different methods. Kasi nga, instruction or assessment should be fair to all and wherein yung teacher natin dapat mag-provide siya ng various methods or various avenues for the students to display learning. Yan. Next is that students should know how they are evaluated, meaning they are informed of what should be done or why are they assessed, how will they be assessed, yan, and what are the criteria na hahanapin sa kanilang performances. Yan. And last but not the least is computer program have been developed to administer assessment. It's kumbaga, there is a system that is established in order to do the assessment more easily or administer the assessment procedure more or in a more convenient way and more understandable way. Now, another is what we call the performance assessment, yan, which has 3 key features. Yan, the student's construct should be emphasized rather than select responses, meaning the students are to demonstrate understanding and learning instead of simply choosing among the letters or choosing among the options. Now, the second one is, or second feature is that assessment formats should allow teachers to observe students' behaviors based on real-world requirements or based on how they are to apply learnings on the real-world setting. And lastly, syempre, the scoring should reveal patterns in students' learning and thinking. Meaning, kung ano man yung i-assess sa kanila, it is based on a certain criteria, that which will reveal to show or that which will show their mastery level of the skill. Yan. Kasi nga, performance siya.